It's more like like basically a
Yeah.
porch just with windows that don't have glass in them. And it's on the north side, so there's no sun coming in. And it's just a really nice place to sit. We only had one person come in via Zoom, and I had my iPad on the table, and it actually didn't work that well because there's no place to put it. So everybody could see the screen. So, but I thought it went pretty well, and we had a good time.
Carmelita and Lynn, I would like to ask you
Yes.
both to mute because I'm going to stay unmuted so I can speak at 10 o'clock. Good morning, everyone. Our worship prelude will be Danza number 27 by Ignacio Cervantes. His Cuban dances are undoubtedly the most original contribution to 19th century Cuban art music. Ignacio Cervantes was born in 1847 and died in 1905. He won the grand prize at the Paris Conservatory in 1866. Ignacio Cervantes was greatly admired by Rossini and Liszt. Cervantes' Cuban dances demonstrate a Chopinesque harmony and blend syncopated rhythms of Afro-Cuban dance. His Cuban dances require a virtuoso performer. So we are fortunate to have our talented music director, David Chapman, play several Cervantes dances for us during this worship service. We will now hear David play Danza number 27 by Ignacio Cervantes. Thank you, David. Good morning. My name is Tricia Most. My pronouns are she, her, and I am one of the worship associates who works with others to present worship services. Welcome to Paint Branch Unitarian Universalist Church, located on the traditional land of the Piscataway people. We are intentionally welcoming. We are an intentionally welcoming community journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community through our actions to dismantle racism and other oppressions. One of these actions is learning, and we strive as a congregation to continue learning on our journey towards spiritual wholeness. Thank you for joining us for this service on how social activism shapes our lives. At Paint Branch UU Church, we welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all that you bring with you today. The communications team wants you to know that there will be no continuum next week on Thursday, July 29th. Publication will resume the following week on August 5th. You are invited to join the Board of Trustees in the main room for virtual coffee and conversation today, immediately following the worship service. The board would like to hear your thoughts on how and when to resume in-person gatherings. The results of the congregational survey sent out last week will be shared. Because we are worshiping online, we encourage you to greet each other now rather than in the chat during the service. I invite you to go to gallery view so you can see everyone, unmute yourself, say hello, and wave. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Morning.
Hi there, everybody.
Morning.
See you. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Like chaos.
It's organized
Good morning,
chaos.
Bernie.
And further,
Good morning.
And now Carmelita Carter Sykes will call us into worship.
A Network of Mutuality by Martin Luther King Jr. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. There are some things in our social system to which all of us ought to be maladjusted. Hatred and bitterness can never cure the disease of fear. Only love can do that. We must evolve for all human conflict, a method which rejects all revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love. Before it is too late, we must narrow the gaping chasm between our proclamations of peace and our lowly deeds, which precipitate and perpetuate war. One day, we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal. We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means. We shall hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. Now Will Snyder will light the chalice.
Good morning. This morning, I light the chalice to honor social action at Paint Branch. For me, it's exemplified by people like Margaret Morrison, our Minister Emerita Diane Teichert, Bert and Marge Dunn, Lowell and Marge Owens. May the flame continue to burn bright. Now let us recite the chalice lighting words. First in English, then in Spanish. We light the chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open mind, the helping hands, the loving heart, and the radiant spirit. Encendamos este cáliz para celebrar el unitarismo universalismo. Esta es la iglesia de la mente abierta, de las manos amigas, del amor del corazón y del espíritu radiante.
Thank you, Will. Our beloved Director of Faith Engagement, Chris McCann, is taking some well-deserved time off and chose for us this story. A is for Activist, written and illustrated by Inosanto Nagara. Nagara was born and raised in Jakarta, Indonesia, and moved to the US in 1988. He studied zoology and philosophy at University of California, Davis. After graduating, he moved to the San Francisco Bay Area, where he worked as a graphic designer for a range of social action organizations. A is for Activist is his first children's book. It will be read for us by musician and political activist Tom Morello.
Hi, this is Tom Morello here at Veritas Studios. I'm reading my first ever books on tape for a fine book called A is for Activist. This is a book that I have in my personal collection, and I read to my 3-year-old and 5-year-old when they will allow it. And now I'll begin reading it for the world. A. A is for activist, advocate, abolitionist, ally, actively answering a call to action. Are you an activist? B. B is for banner, bobbing in the sky, billowing in the breeze, 'cause you're not shy. C. C is for co-op, cooperating cultures, creative counter to corporate vultures. Oh, and cats. Can you find the cats? D. Little d, democracy. More than voting, you'll agree. Dictators detest it. Donkeys don't get it. But you and me, we demand equality. E. Equal rights. Black, brown, or white. Clean and healthy is a right. Every place we live and play. Environmental justice is the way. F. F is for feminist, for fairness in our pay, for freedom to flourish and choose our own way. G. G is for grassroots, sprouting from below, sharing nutrients and the waters flow. Below the surface, we're all connected. Stronger together, we grow. H. H is for healthy food, a human right, honeydew, jicama, nature's delight. Hummus, hot dogs, Havarti cheese. Hot dogs? Yes, healthy hot dogs, please. And pizza. I. Indigenous and immigrant. Together we stand tall. Our histories are relevant. An injury to one is an injury to all. J. J is for justice. Yay for justice. Ja Jing Jung. Juanita. Jamal. Justice for the janitors. Justicia for all. K. Kings are fine for story time. Knights are fun to play. But when we make decisions, we will choose the people's way. L. LGBTQ. Love who you choose, 'cause love is true. Liberate your notions of limited emotions. Celebrate with pride our links of devotion. M. Megaphones marching. Movimiento music. Hip hip hooray. It must be May Day. N. N is for no. No, no, no. Yes to what we want. No to what must go. No, no, no. O. Open minds operate best. Critical thinking over tests. Wisdom can't be memorized. Educate, agitate, organize. P. Peace march. Protest. Pow, power to the people. Yeah. Q is for question. questioning coercion, querying qualities counter false assertions. R. Radical Reds, the headline said. Ruinous rioters, the rumors spread. Rabble-rousing riffraff. Really? S. S is for sun, soul, solar, superstar, stellar power, fuels all life, not just flowers. Energized homes, cars, and showers. Silly, selfish scoundrels sucking on dinosaur sludge? Boo. Hiss. T. T is for trans. For trains, tiaras, tulips, tractors, and tigers too. Trust in the true, the he, she, they that is you. U. U is for weekends. U is for workers' rights. Wait, that's not U. That's W. U is for union. Union, yes. V. V is for Vox. What? Did you say Fox? No, I said Vox. Did you say box? No, Vox. Rocks? Blocks? Socks? Vox. Vox of the people. Voice of the populi. Better go see the letter D. W. Wondrous world. Wondrous we. We cannot be whole. We cannot be free unless we delight in diversity. X. X is for Malcolm, as in Malcolm X. History's lessons can be complex. Remember Parks, remember King, remember Malcolm, and let freedom ring. Y. Y is for you and youth. Your planet, your rights, your future, your truth. Y is for yes. Yes, yes, yes. Z. Z is for Zapatista, of course.
Please remain muted as we sing hymn number 121, We'll Build a Land. Thank you, David. I want to begin by thanking Kathy Bartolomeo for initiating the plan for this worship service many months ago. I'm sorry she's unable to participate with us today. Kathy titled this service, How Social Activism Shapes Our Lives. In thinking about the theme for this service, I considered my roots in a Christian and Missionary Alliance church that sponsored missionaries whose whereabouts were thumbtacks posted on a map of the world. Every Sunday, Mrs. Williams would play piano and lead all the youngest Sunday school children in singing Jesus Loves the Little Children. The lyrics we sang were, Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world, red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in his sight. I remember not understanding the idea that some little children were red and yellow. It was a strange idea to me then, and it is recognized as a microaggression now. When I was told that the song was about different races of people, I believe that this song was saying that we are all equal in the eyes of God. I believed that Christianity was about loving all people and wanting fairness for all people. I didn't know about the Ku Klux Klan. I didn't know that there were Christian white people concealing themselves in hoods, burning Christian crosses to terrorize Black people. It wasn't until my family moved to Prince George's County, Maryland, that I attended a school with about equal numbers of Black and white students and white and Black teachers. I thought this is the way things are supposed to be. It appeared to me that everyone got along. There were several interracial couples among my friends, but still, our history classes did not teach a complete picture of the nation's history. From the time I was a teenager, I had marched in protests against the Vietnam War and in favor of women's reproductive choices. But there are many ways my awareness of injustices and concerns broadened after coming to Paint Branch. For example, I remember that as a new member, I attended a Saturday workshop that included some time to commune with nature in the Glen. Afterward, we gathered inside as people shared spiritual reflections on their personal silent walking meditation.
Hello, Andy. Hi.
Someone needs to mute.
Is that right?
Mike, you need to mute, please.
Yeah. Am I still doing it? Okay.
We gathered outside as people, excuse me. As a new member, I attended a Saturday workshop that included some time to commune with nature in the Glen. Afterward, we gathered inside as people shared spiritual reflections. I was stunned by hearing a woman I did not know lovingly effervesce about feeling one with the Paint Branch stream's surface of scum. Others nodded in agreement. I remember thinking, scum? Really? But I listened to her talk about how life evolves from the simplest organisms as she shared her understanding of the interdependence of all nature. And my awareness and my appreciation grew. We are all connected to all that is. During my time at Paint Branch, my social actions increased to attending town hall meetings where I brought up education and income inequality issues. I wrote my local and national senators and representatives about climate justice issues, transgender rights, rights for the mentally ill, same-sex marriage, and other timely issues. I've participated in phone banking, attended many rallies, collected petition signatures, gone door to door to get out the vote. I have made many trips to Annapolis to meet personally with my representatives about some of these issues, especially during the years leading up to the legalization of same-sex marriage in Maryland. Though I was warmly welcomed at Paint Branch, one thing always bothered me. Despite being located in a racially diverse area, my church did not reflect that reality. I know lots of people of color and white people in my neighborhood, and I have had many discussions with neighbors over the years about their religious perspectives and experiences. But none of my neighbors have ever accepted my invitations to come to this church. I acknowledge that Paint Branch is more racially diverse now than it was in the past, and that we must continue to learn how to more fully live into our goal of creating beloved community. A concept that I find relevant to the link between spirituality and social action is Alfred Adler's philosophy of Gemeinschaftsgefühl, which is translated into English as either community feeling or social interest. Think of this idea as the recognition and acceptance of the interconnectedness of all people expressed in our behavior. Adler said Gemeinschaftsgefühl is experienced as a deep feeling of belonging to the human race and empathy with all. We care about so many things, and we want to affect change and improvement in so many areas. How do we maintain balance as we work toward creating a better, more just, more inclusive, caring world that meets the needs of all of us? At Paint Branch, I was introduced to these now familiar words from Edward Everett Hale. I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. Last week, Reverend Lynn said, our compassion and love can help heal the world. She reminded us to keep it spiritual. May it be so.
Carmelita, you're muted.
how I became involved in social action. Can you hear me, I hope? Origins, from the eyes of a child. I suppose it came naturally in a way of speaking. It was the way in which the genetic material of my Black parents came together to make their second Black child, me. It was the decision made by my Black parents not to talk to their children about racial matters that created the need for me to make meaning of what I saw for myself. Recently, I checked my hypothesis with my sister, Carol Carter Walker, who seemed to pay more attention to what Mr. and Mrs. Carter said or were doing than I did. Also, she knew them longer. At the time, I was probably busy watching TV, reading, or climbing a tree. Carol seemed to agree, but she said she once heard our mother say to a girlfriend on the phone that Black people had to work twice as hard to achieve anything. I'm thinking now that our parents may have thought race was not a suitable topic for conversation with children, or maybe they thought we'd never notice racism or be touched by it if they didn't mention it. Let's see now. I was a Black child living in a world I had to explain to myself. Was this a recipe for instant activism? Perhaps. For me, it was the beginning of a progression of observances and experiences I had from childhood that established my view. I was a happy child, living in a comfortable home, going to a comfortable school, going to a comfortable church. My comfortable world was virtually all Black, and I did comfortable, predictable things in it. This is what I tell myself about my childhood anyway. But perhaps things were not as comfortable as I have imagined them to have been. My home wasn't so comfortable when I heard my parents speak in loud voices about money, or when I was admonished for some wrongdoing, perhaps some breakage in the house. And I must admit that when there was breakage of glass or rules, mine was the first name on the short list of offenders. And I was a proud culprit. I thought I was brave. I thought I was smart. I admitted what I did and took the whipping for something all of us children might have done. That introduced the concept of unfairness and the difference between being smart and being a smart ass. One was a lot more painful. I also learned that the person who speaks gets the hurt. When the parents were out and we operated in the much smaller and more perilous venue of our child's minds, which were cluttered with TV and movie plots, and we felt unrealistically free, we actually fought physically with each other. Not very satisfying. I learned fighting was hard on the body and potentially dangerous. I did not like dangerous. Outside of home, outside the bubble I walked into school or rode in the car, I learned other lessons. For example, once when I was a small, happy child, ecstatic to be riding the bus downtown with my mother, a woman didn't speak to me when I spoke to her. I told my mother about it and brazenly pointed to the woman who was white. I don't recall any response from my mother, so I surmised in my child's minds that there must be something odd about those white people who seem to be so friendly on TV and in school books, but were capable of unpredictable, unfair, mysterious, and downright bad behaviors. When I think of it, however, there were always bad white guys in those TV shows. Then the bad guys were Black, indigenous people of color. And it took some white guy always to come along to explain and straighten things out. I thought in my child's mind that if I were getting negative responses from someone when I hadn't done anything but exist, it was strange and unfair. I guess my child's mind was always working on what, if anything, could be done about unpleasantness toward me and others unrelated to what I did or they did. What's to be done? Fight, flight, do nothing? Then I realized I had tools. I realized I had been provided with deep resources by my family and communities. I could look into my brain and heart and think about the nobility, strength, creativity, pride, bravery of the ancestral Black people I learned about in my Black school. At church and home, I could see the pride with which my mother and others recited and acted out the long poems in dialect of Paul Laurence Dunbar, reveling in the differences in speech we were being taught in the outside world should be our shame. I could see and experience the joy they felt when the Carter family singers, which was my father and us three girls, and choirs sang gospel songs at church. I'm thinking now that the Carters didn't talk about race, but their message of pride, legacy, and endurance was sent every day in many ways to keep us going. So what do I or other people of color to do about unfair situations that happen to us? I was a child then, but had noticed there was a pattern. Who was on the receiving end and who was giving the grief? I belong to identity groups then and now for whom unfairness or inequity has been encouraged, existing unchecked as standard operating procedure. I am Black. I am a woman. I am a Unitarian Universalist living in a racist, misogynistic, reactionary country. Do I lay back, forgive, and be silent? That means I accept that I am powerless. I am not, and I do not. That means that I accept the status quo. I do not. If I don't work towards stopping actions that sustain inequity, that means I accept hopelessness. I do not. Over time, I have learned to work with others with shared identities and goals to establish equity in the world. I have decided that the discomfort for myself and others of what I call dissension for cause is in order to establish equity in the world. That is mere discomfort for some, but life for others, and life wins. Who will say that their discomfort is more important than another's life? I won't. I have decided that I will speak about these matters. Ebeth Porter will sing We Are by Issei Barnwell.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one.
The South, Salsa and Sanctuary. In 1965, I moved to Birmingham, Alabama to play in the Birmingham Symphony Orchestra. I lived there for 3 years and experienced firsthand the conflict between the segregationist followers of Governor George Wallace and those who were more moderate in their views. There's a lot to say about that, but today I'm going to talk about my deep involvement with Central America and Cuba. Because the Reagan administration supported the governments of El Salvador and Guatemala and opposed the Sandinista government of Nicaragua, framing the conflict in an East-West Cold War terms, I was confused when people who had been to the region said that these revolutions were the result of extremely poor economic conditions for the majority of the people in these countries, as well as the violent oppression of those who work for democratic change. I had to see for myself and went to the region in 1984 and for an extended period in 1986. I got to see the work of Witness for Peace in Nicaragua and traveled with Nicaragua's small chamber orchestra as they went around the country. I also visited Guatemala and Costa Rica. In June 1987, a young family from El Salvador came to Syracuse as part of the Sanctuary movement. Here is the cover of the Syracuse Peace Council newsletter showing the masked family. And here are pictures of their children unmasked. The Syracuse Sanctuary Coalition included a UU church that I soon joined. My friends and I got to know the family well before they went to Canada, where they were accepted as political refugees. They have since lived in Edmonton, Alberta, where there is a small sanctuary community, and are still there today. I have visited them several times. In 2005, I visited El Salvador for the first time, spending time in communities greatly affected by the war. In 1992, I had the chance to travel to Cuba on a performing arts tour organized by the Center for Cuban Studies in New York. I returned 2 years later on my own, traveling from Toronto. Canada has always had normal relations with Cuba, in spite of U.S. pressure. I got to know many Cuban musicians and teachers. Here's a photo taken by a friend of mine of some Cuban elementary school students. I have returned to Cuba 7 more times, the last time in January 2019. One of my best friends is the timpanist in the Cuban National Symphony. For many years, our Syracuse UU Social Justice Committee hosted Pastors for Peace caravans to Cuba as they passed through Syracuse. Under President Trump, over 140 restrictions were placed on Cuba. President Biden has yet to remove any of them. Cubans are suffering greatly as a result. With COVID, things are even more difficult, but Cuba has recently developed a vaccine that is over 90% effective and will be providing it to Cubans as well as poor nations of the world. The majority of Cuban Americans want normal relations with Cuba, but U.S. electoral politics have kept a bad policy for over 60 years. These experiences have helped me to have compassion for the victims of U.S. policy in Central America and Cuba, and as I work with groups such as Pastors for Peace and the Latin America Working Group here in D.C., I hope to educate people about these policies and work to change them. Thank you. The South.
You're on. Hello, everyone. I grew up in conservative central Pennsylvania to Republican parents who believed that one should always stay in the middle of the road in everything. Then I married a Jewish man from Brooklyn, New York, whose parents were socialists. Bert was an activist and reformer at heart. An example, during the Vietnam War, he and several colleagues wrote an anti-Vietnam War leaflet and put it onto vehicle windshields within Goddard Space Flight Center. That's an interesting story that you can ask me about later if you want. When the need for work on civil rights came into white people's consciousness in the 1960s, Bert and some others formed the Greenbelt Fair Housing Committee, which eventually succeeded in getting Greenbelt integrated. His involvement in this scared me. I was afraid that vigilantes, or some such, would do dear knows what. But after a year or two, I decided to join Bert in picketing apartment complexes in the Washington suburbs that would not rent to African Americans. We picketed with this group, which was called Access, every Sunday morning for several years. I also helped in the Access office, which was only 1 block from where we lived in Greenbelt. Bert was also active in a number of peace groups. I went along to the big marches and rallies in Washington, but did not participate otherwise. When the women's movement came along, I was a late joiner, but helped a bit with the women's center that was housed in this church's RE building, in the room where the office is now. And I have occasionally gone to one of the big marches for the women's movement downtown. Meanwhile, I had realized my mistake in being very homophobic all my life. Looking back, I thought of the 16 years that I was DRE here at Paint Branch and felt much regret about any gay or lesbian or transgender children in the RE program whom we never knew were there and therefore failed to support. I became one of the leaders of the UUA's new workshop at that time called Welcoming Congregation, along with Ed Kobe, Al Usack, and Mike Stark. We four rewrote the UUA's 10-session course into a weekend format and offered it here for several years. Ed and Al went on to get a subsidy to take that program all over the state. Along with other Social Action Committee members here, I got involved in meeting with legislators in Annapolis. I remember, for instance, a group of Paint Branchers lobbying for gay marriage. Paint Branch also had a phone bank here for supporting the bill legalizing gay marriage, which did eventually pass. And then there's climate change. Doing something about it helps me sleep at night. Here at Paint Branch, I started an email alert network for contacting legislators about bills, both statewide and national. At first it covered many different issues, but after a while became almost entirely about the environment. It's still ongoing. Email if you want to be part of that. Email me or ask me more about it in the chat in our discussion afterwards if you want to be part of that. Since the pandemic started, I've tried to attend Zoom meetings of the local Peace and Justice Coalition, the Greenbelt Climate Action Network, the Beloved Community Interfaith Network, and here at church, the Green Team and the Social Action Committee. That may sound like a lot of different meetings, but I forget to go to a lot of them. I didn't mention at the beginning that I'm a pretty extreme introvert. Being involved in action to make the world better has kept me involved in the world in spite of my shyness. There are always ways that people are being discriminated against, laws that need changing, or an environment in danger of going down the tubes. Thank you.
Please remain muted as we sing hymn number 1028, The Fire of Commitment.
Good morning. My name is Lynn Lewison, and I am a pastoral care associate here at Paint Branch, along with Kathy Bartolomeo and Jim Flaherty. As we gather and worship today, we are carrying life's hurts and joys. Sometimes the sharing in community of our significant life experiences and milestones can help strengthen the bonds between us and also help erase our burdens. I invite you now to share your joys and sorrows in the chat, and I will lead a meditation after the intonation. And now David Chapman will play Blowing in the Wind by Bob Dylan. Thank you, David. Now let us take a few minutes to acknowledge all that has been shared, as well as those joys and sorrows that remain unshared and yet are on our minds. In this quiet time, may our hearts open to hope and healing. May our minds open to hope and possibility. May we hold these and one another in love and kindness, so that this congregation may be a source of strength and comfort, courage and hope in the days and weeks ahead.
In community, we learn from each other. We derive inspiration from each other. We strive to be our best selves as we work, each in our own ways, to try to make this world a better place. With gratitude for each other and for what we try to accomplish together, we will now receive the offering. You can make an online donation through Breeze or by text, as indicated in the chat bar, or you can mail donations to the church office. Our church depends upon the financial support of our members and friends. Please give as generously as you are able. Now we will hear David Chapman play a medley by Ignacio Cervantes, Danza number 19 and number 26. We accept the discomfort of dissension for the cause of establishing equity in the world. Becoming a social activist can mean developing compassion for people who are discriminated against because of US policy. There are always ways that people are being discriminated against. There are always laws that need changing and an environment in danger. Being engaged in social activism helps us sleep at night. Our compassion and love can help heal the world. And now we will remain muted as we sing Fuente de Amor, Spirit of Life.
Although I am extinguishing the chalice, the spirit of social action illustrated by this service continues.
All right. We are going to have a listening session this afternoon, immediately after the service. We will also have breakout rooms if you prefer. And to reach those, you simply have to wait for me to open them and you will get a prompt. So we welcome you to whichever of those activities you care to join.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm on a different network in a different location, so if I could get some.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent.
Hello, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning. So this is Melissa Graham, and I am your re-elected board chair, and I'm very excited to serve for one more year in this role. And as Abby said, if you would like to remain here in the breakout room, in the main room, we are going to have the monthly coffee and conversation with the Board of Trustees, but you may also join the breakout room for smaller conversations if you like. So today, just a reminder that the purpose of our sessions is to give you a chance to get to know the board members a little bit better, as well as to share your thoughts on topics of interest or concern to you as regards Paint Branch. These sessions are held the Sunday immediately prior to the upcoming board meeting. So the next board meeting is this Tuesday at 7 p.m. and you can locate the information for joining either in the continuum or on the church calendar. And today we are going to try to primarily focus in on the resumption of in-person gathering, the move to multi-platform worship, as this is something that is going to be a major topic of consideration in this month's board meeting. Thank you to